Psychopaths is a franchise that, had you asked me back in, say, 2013, what is one of the best anime around, I would point you towards the first season of the anime. But after the release of Season 2, I felt less enthusiastic, to put it nicely, with its sequel season, to then feeling slightly optimistic about the future of the franchise with the 2015 movie. But that spark that Season 1 had was pretty much all but lost until 2019 when Psychopaths 3 dropped 8 double-length episodes, and fixed pretty much every issue I had with its prior entries, while delivering what I would consider to be my personal favorite story that the series has seen to date. That spark has ignited a fire that I hope Psychopaths doesn't let go out. Now, a quick refresher for those who need it. In this world, society is more or less driven by a system called Sybil, where law enforcement has gadgets that can read people's crime coefficients, which will determine what type of force is needed for the criminal at hand. This is a very futuristic society controlled by a system, and people sort of just roll with it, and those who don't pretty much get spanked. In this third season, the direction the story and characters take are a more of a personal and interwoven narrative that starts off with a ship carrying immigrants that expands into a full-blown conspiracy, not truly knowing what this mysterious group Bifrost is and whether they are simply observing from the shadows or potentially getting their hands dirty, and how Sybil ties into this web of mysteries. With only 2 new inspectors, Kei and Arta, raising an eyebrow or two at this conspiracy at hand, or at least at the start, which thankfully this season did the best thing we could possibly hope for, focusing on new characters and ideas, with the old fan favorites being in the sidelines, allowing for it to feel original and not just a rehash of the same thing we've already seen before. What the season does an exceptional job at is how the characters and cases are explored very naturally. A big issue I had with the second season was never really the story being told. In fact, the first half of that season I actually really enjoyed, but having 11 episodes didn't quite cut it for the tale that they were trying to make, which ended up feeling rushed by the end. Having the equivalent of 16 episodes but done in 8 allows for 2 sides of Psychopaths to be explored in a pretty equal manner without ever ruining the pacing, those being the characters and of course the story. Often with storytelling, you'll usually have a few episodes of heavy plot-centric content and then a couple of downtime ones to make sure everyone feels like a person and not just a simple robot following the script. But due to the episodes running close to an hour, what ends up happening is we can have 20 or even 40 minutes really hammering in the narrative to then transitioning very casually, letting characters feel so human by goofing off, feeling like they are more than inspectors but real people, while then transitioning back into a narrative before the episode even ends. What this allows for is for Psychopaths to not only feel intriguing with this story being told that continues to expand episode by episode to something fairly digestible but meaty in substance by its conclusion, but it also gives a majority of the cast time to feel alive rather than just the robots many of them seemed like they were in Season 2. The conspiracy starts off with a crashed plane to then be woven into a political campaign, weapons smuggling, to something more religious and potentially cultist, with more questions and answers. But what Season 3 did that really took my breath away was how every time a case or arc seemingly ended, it felt standalone, as if this was great by itself. The longer you watch this season, the more you recognize every single case is linking up to a bigger conspiracy, and this Bifrost and Foxes are to keep seeing are linking up to something far more sinister and complex than we first recognized. While the narrative kept me craving my next dosage of Psychopaths, had Kei and Arta not been as fleshed out as they were, I'm sure many, myself included, would have considered this worthy of the Psychopaths name. But truth be told, they probably are my favorite characters in this series to date, and I know, that's saying a lot. Something that has always caught my eye about this world is the idea of the Sybil system and how naturally people would follow or push back against it. With Kei and Arta, we get a sort of middle ground opinion on the matter. Having 2 characters, one of which moved to Japan to escape hell with his wife and is constantly being pushed back by the general public and sometimes even his peers, with another who seemingly is as cheerful as can be, yet they both tie together with tragic pasts, made this season exactly what it is. They're the kinds of people who believe in the system but don't put blind faith in it like most. If they were to follow partner pairings based on this system, they wouldn't ever be together. They literally have the lowest rating imaginable, but as we can see are clearly the best partners, so what gives? Just because their dominators say to lethally kill someone, you have people like Arta recognizing that putting his own life on the line can deliver another option that a machine logically wouldn't come to. Both understand there comes points and times where the machine doesn't have the right answer, giving these two characters the ability to think for themselves while also trusting in a system that has left many viewers pretty unsure of with past stories, allowed for Sybil to not really be the main focus, but rather this Bifrost narrative to be the star of the show, which then allows Sybil to sneakily be important without stealing the spotlight of fresh ideas. Basically, as long as this system exists in Psycho-Pass, there's always more story to tell, but I was worried that this season would fall victim into taking the characters in another Akane direction and just reusing the same ideas over and over again. She has great stories, but we don't need to rely on her or others to make this world brilliant. By using the side characters as a way to explore the uncertainty of this machine-like being determining what you do, with two central characters having room to think for themselves, we experience the best of Psycho-Pass while also seeing new ideas all in the process. By letting this series feel simple to follow, at least at the start, with basic immigration tales that unravels into one larger conspiracy connecting to Bifrost and Sybil, you are left with the perfect Psycho-Pass story that I could possibly hope for. Kane and Arta's banter is some of the most natural I've seen in this series to date, especially with Arta's strange ability to connect in such a way to relive what has seemingly happened. And though they never really go fully into how he came to be with his mentalist ability, the fact that their story wasn't fully concluded, at least as of yet, and will actually lead into future projects, it never lets this be an issue, at least as of right now. They never abuse this ability as a way to solve any and all crime, but rather it's this dangerous tool to get leads that, should Kay not snap him out of it, he can actually easily hurt himself to the point of no return. Achilles' heels are very important to a story such as this, and thankfully, this tale has the perfect one for Arata. Kay seems more like this mature enforcer who by the end showcases his own flaws in ways I was not expecting, that puts an interesting distance between these two characters that I thought inseparable, with Arata's cheerful joy being brought down a notch after following what he believes in. Having these two feel so perfect together, but as time goes on and episode 8 concludes, it leaves the viewer speculating on where they'll truly go in their next installment. It was really the optimal way to keep their story fresh, feeling as if there's still more original ideas left to explore with them, and they're not just being milked like past characters that came before them. When you mix it with the side characters from the previous seasons, who felt as exciting as watching paint dry, by giving them more natural writing this time around, it lets the series as a whole feel human, as if what someone in this world should experience day after day was actually seen here: the simple, the serious, the heartbreaking, and the conspiracy. One of my biggest takeaways with the presentation of this season is how alive and vibrant the backgrounds and effects are. With the amount of technology Psycho-Pass portrays, to always have something glowing or reacting, just feeling futuristic, kept every single moment of this anime feeling so alive, as if we truly were in the future. Anytime there was a scene that felt pretty mundane, as if it's just someone's home, it almost felt off-putting, as you get so used to always seeing something react to our characters, as so much is ingrained with technology at this point in time in their life. The fact that Production IG blended effects with the characters so naturally never let the immersion break from my experience, as I often see with anime with a similar setting. And truth be told, the background work is some of the best I've seen in the past year. Usually I find it quite disappointing that most background scenery is simply used to fill a scene rather than enhance it. But seen here, there are so many details from objects placed to make it feel as if someone was actually working here. It's not just some dark place, but rather was a gritty workshop, to how streets exploded with life. It's damn beautiful, and really captures the world of Psycho-Pass, I'd say the best I've ever seen, really bringing their A-game to the finer details that most studios and teams simply overlook. The first half of the season feels like a movie week by week, never letting dips or inconsistencies ever pop up. But when you're making 8 double-length episodes, eventually production missteps are to be expected, and the back half definitely had moments of derpy character models and just simply underwhelming sequences. But if I added up all the shots that either left a sour taste in my mouth or just a little disappointing, and then I compared to all the ones that took my breath away, it's a very small mistake that easily could be corrected in the physical release that never ruined my enjoyment, with a few bumps along the road. Though the best part of the animation might actually be the fight sequences that don't rely on flashy 100-hit combos, but real weight behind the movements, like sluggish punches, characters tripping or struggling to survive. It's completely mesmerizing how real these anime characters feel when they get into hand-to-hand combat, with multiple sequences truly taking my breath away by the complexity of the scene at hand, allowing for these movements to actually feel alive. The voice actors in Psycho-Pass have always done a great job, even when the scripts were pretty lackluster. I never found anyone horrible to listen to, but once again I have to bring up Kei and Arta, as they have the most compelling acting this season. Kei should normally be a pretty one-note, straight and narrow character, but if you compare his vocal range from episodes 1 through 3 to then the final stretch, you really notice an evolution to his performance that's best described as depressing, based on what he had to endure this season. With Arta being this pretty cheerful but calming presence that found a way to either bring anything to life with positivity or calming a storm when you think it's doomed to kill those surrounding him. A big reason their character writing landed on their 2 feet is due to the delivery of their lines and how memorable any scene with them was. Usually I'd be bored at least at some point in time, but I truly can't think of a single moment that I thought, you know what, let's move on. As I mentioned earlier, the visuals perfectly capture a futuristic appeal, but I have to say the sound design, it equally matches those scenes at hand. The way that technology interacts with characters feels futuristic without going overboard like I've seen so many projects do in the past. Such as, look at how cool everything is, let's overdo it with sound effects letting everyone roll their eyes feeling as if it's lost its magic. But here it strikes that perfect balance of being memorable but never distracting, letting dialogue take priority. And you may think to yourself, well that's just common sense for production design, but I've seen so many series overwhelmed with sci-fi sound effects, so it has to be praised here. Music wasn't the driving force of the sound department this season, but it did a solid job during the key moments to heighten the atmosphere at hand, and when you listen to that opening song, you can't help but get excited for your next adventure at hand. The visuals are cool enough to this opening, but there's something so magical about that song that always kept me excited for my weekly dose of this story. In many ways, Psycho-Pass 3 feels like a handful of movies that all link up to one conspiracy by the end, with this uncertainty of where it will truly go in its future installment. For myself, this is as Psycho-Pass as it comes, with very few missteps that I proudly award my ultimate seal of approval. In some ways, I feel like it could stand tall as a story by itself, not linked to any of the other seasons, but of course, be sure to watch the prior seasons, and of course movies, before jumping aboard what I consider to be my favorite Psycho-Pass work to date. Obviously, it probably won't be everyone's favorite like it was mine, but I truly think those disappointed after Season 2 will be pleasantly surprised by what's seen here. It feels damn good to be excited for Psycho-Pass again, I have to say. For anyone who has any thoughts on Psycho-Pass 3 or this video, be sure to let me know yours down in the comment section below, be it a favorite character, moment, arc, whatever you're feeling, do let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. Now lastly, there's always my Patreon, for those who want to go the extra mile and help support what I do around here even more, but of course, that's always if you so wish. So until next time everyone, please take care, and have a good one.